Wrestling fans, the following contest, it is for Three Falls.
It is the Three Falls Podcast with your hosts, Sharpshooter Derek Schluter,
Professor is...
Matt Professor Pepper,
That's a spoiler!
and wrestling enthusiast Michael Punker.
And away we go.
1, 2, 3!
It's that time again. Welcome to another episode of the Three Falls Podcast. I'm your host, Derek, and I'm joined, as always, by the Professor, Matt Pepper. Matt, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. Lots of stuff in wrestling this week. I watched some stuff, a lot of stuff, depending on your point of view. I got a question for you, though.
Well, you're very thrilling in this. I watched some stuff, a lot of stuff.
I know. I got lost on what I was saying there, so I was trying to cover, but thanks for pointing that out.
Oh yeah, no problem. That's what I do. So you have a question for me, you say?
Yeah, I'm gonna start. You used to give these weird questions off the top, so I'm gonna give you one right off the bat. Not a strange one. But in terms of wrestling, shoot interviews, out of character stuff, who are some talent that you could listen to over and over again that you find entertaining?
I mean, there's a lot. Like that.
Just give a couple. Just give 2 or 3.
Well, right now, I kind of went down the Kevin Nash molehill, if you will. I'm in the middle of, which I'm not sure if I said this because I'm in the middle of it. I've been in the middle of it for a couple of weeks now, but that's my viewing habits. The middle of Timeline 1995 with Kevin Nash.
Yeah.
So, and I on deck, I also have his U-Shoot, and I think WCW in 2000 or something like that. So, I mean, it's not that I find him, any more entertaining, but it's just that's, I don't know. He seems pretty honest. See, and I'll tell you this, okay? Because there's a couple people, like Bret Hart, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you ask him a question and you'll get 3-hour answer anyway, kind of like you. But the thing that I look for is how honest they are. If my bullshit detector goes off, then, I can't handle so much of them. But unless they're entertaining, like Honky Tonk Man, my bullshit detection goes off, but he's entertaining, so I can
Yes.
do a 3-hour shoot with him. But and I could do a couple. But it all depends on how entertaining or how honest they are, because, I mean, I don't want to sit there and listen to someone, tall like Hogan. Like, I don't know if I would love to have dinner with Hogan. I would love to have a conversation with Hogan, but anything he says, I'm really not taking it to heart.
I don't think he's ever actually done, quote unquote, a shoot interview. So that would be interesting.
Did you know that he body slammed Andre the Giant in front of the population of India, and it was so massive that it caused an earthquake, and Abraham Lincoln's nose to fall off on Mount Rushmore?
Who doesn't know this?
You know what's great about that? I don't even think Abraham Lincoln's on Mount Rushmore, but he used to be until Andre the Giant got body slammed by Hulk Hogan.
Well, Abraham Lincoln might be the only person that could make the presidential Mount Rushmore and the wrestling one, because he was a wrestler.
Yes, he was. So where were you going with this? Like, who did you listen to?
I listen to shoot stuff all the time. Like, it's just random things. But I'll tell you,
just to interrupt you there for 1 second. I mean, in reality, if I really think about it, Jim Cornette's at the top of the list, because I try to listen to his pocket. I can't even get through his podcast. He has 2 podcasts a week, and they're 4 hours each.
Sometimes.
And I listen to that every week, but I still go back.
I know. you have to be pretty talented to make a 4-hour show and keep listeners.
I mean, yeah, look at our show.
It is not 4 hours. I got to trim it down because it's like, who wants to listen to Derek for like an hour?
Oh God.
Anyway, I was just gonna say, I'll just give you a couple names I can listen to all the time. One is Tony Atlas.
Tony Atlas.
Oh my God, he is hilarious. The stuff he says, it's he does. It's not like he's. I don't find him dishonest, but the way he talks, the way he goes into stories, it is entertaining. And he does a weekly or bi-weekly show on YouTube.
Really? I didn't know that.
Well, it's the channel's called Boston Wrestling, and the host is Dan Moriarty, and he's the interview in the infamous Iron Sheik shoot when all of the Iron Sheik humbling things started. So he has some regulars. Another regular he has all the time, and I enjoy him for different reasons. Is Marty Jannetty.
Oh my gosh!
I could listen to his stories because I don't know what's what with Marty, but he is entertaining. And another person I like when he does shoot interviews is Teddy Long, because people forget how long he was in wrestling for, and he's got.
You could say he was in it for Teddy Long.
Sure, he's entertaining though, because I mean he's legitimately like a grandpa, but he talks like he tells some crazy stories. He seems pretty like a genuine person. So those are some people that they seem to pop up a lot when I'm watching different wrestling things, and they are entertaining. If you've ever, Tony Atlas has a few interviews talking about the Bruiser Brody stuff, and that's not really like comedic or anything like that, but that he probably has the most in-depth story on the night Bruiser Brody died, and I recommend listening to his shoots on that.
Well, he was on the Dark Side of the Ring, wasn't he?
He was, but you got to remember that's condensed because that show's only 44 minutes long. He's got full interviews talking about that, and he can kind of pinpoint the whole thing, and it's interesting. So it's the Darkside. He is on that, and he does tell the story, but he goes into some pretty big details on a couple shoot interviews with that. So anyway, I was just curious who you found interesting or were listening to lately, because I'm always finding new stuff. So, but that Kevin Nash timeline, I have seen that a few times, and that is an interest. I like the timeline series. I don't think they do it anymore, but I enjoyed those shoots.
All right. Speaking of shooting, I have nothing for you. I don't know. I was going to try and segue, but I don't know how to segue out of that.
How about firing?
Okay, perfect. There we go. So, who got fired this week?
What a way to put it out.
I wish I had music. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Who got fired this week?
WWE had released 7 names in the past week, which a lot of people were surprised by because they had a string of releases. I don't know. How long ago was that? A month ago, maybe?
Yeah.
Just after WrestleMania. So they released 7 names. Some maybe not that surprising. Some maybe were. So we'll run through each name, lowest to highest. I hate to word it like that, but for all intents and purposes, we'll do that. We'll just talk briefly on the individual, unless they require a long speech, which some might. So the first name on the list was Santana Garrett, who we didn't see a lot of. She was on NXT. She'd done a lot of indies around Florida. She was on TNA a long time ago. the talk was she actually was. Remember when we talked about Vanessa Bourne being released? That a similar situation. She apparently was called up to the main roster and was never used. So once they do the main roster contracts, the price goes up. The talk was that she was actually supposed to debut possibly in a trios with Vanessa Bourne and Chelsea Green, and that never transpired.
Were they going to be called Future Endeavors?
That would be an awesome stable name if WWE did that. So just like those two, I mean, they got signed to main roster deals. They weren't able to find a spot on the show, and it seemingly they were let go. We didn't see a lot of her at NXT. I'd seen her a little bit before that, Wrestle Circus, different indies. I mean, there's not really a lot of sample size with her on the WWE roster to say what could or couldn't have been. I know typically the internet will think everybody's a superstar, so
yeah, no one should ever get released.
Correct. So the next one, I know you were surprised by.
You know what's funny about the internet? You get all these people, and they're the same people that they bellyache about these people getting released, and that they're talent, and that they should be spotlighted, and all this yip and yap and everything.
Yep.
Then they go AEW, and those same people are like, "Oh, AEW will sign anything WWE throws out."
Not only that, but they'll drag these people on the internet while they're under contract about how much they suck or whatever. And then they get released and they're like, "Oh, how could you release this person?" We'll get to a couple of those names in a bit, but you are correct. It's the narrative changes.
You don't have to tell me when I'm correct, because I'm correct all the time.
Well, yeah. I mean, we saw what happened in the NHL playoffs. I don't think we were too correct this year. Next name on the list, and I know this one was a surprise for you, was Ruby Riott.
Yes. It was a surprise, but it wasn't.
Right.
Because I think she's talented, but I don't want to see her in AEW. No, I'm kidding. No, she's really talented and everything. I just think, like, I'm not saying, oh, it was a mistake. Like, obviously, the talent part, it's a mistake on their part, blah, blah, blah. But, like, I mean, they weren't really using her. What could they really do with her, right? They did everything they could do with her. And at that point, when you look at it, you're like, well, I don't really know what to do, so we're not just going to pay her just because, she's talented.
Yep.
So they let her go, right?
So when I look at her body work, like, she was good in the ring.
Matt, you're a married man.
Not quite what I meant. When I see her as a talent, she was good in the ring. She has a unique look. But after that, honestly, and I'm not knocking her, but it wasn't somebody where I'm like, is so vital to the show, to the company, where it's a can't miss prospect or anything like that.
Exactly.
And could you move her to another show? Probably. But
I got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think, because she was mostly a tag team wrestler, do you think she was strong enough to be a singles star? Not necessarily a star, but like to, she's the type of woman that you would want on your roster because she's what they call in the wrestling business, quote unquote, a good hand.
Yeah. I think you could. I think she's good in a ring, but I don't think she doesn't bring that personality or that star quality I think you'd look for in a single star. Because unfortunately, if she was a singles wrestler, I suspect that she would be on main event a lot or like an underneath talent. And I'm not meaning that in a disparaging way. I don't see that. I don't see that star power. I know a lot of the women wrestlers liked her because obviously she's probably easy to work with in the ring. She's probably, can make the other girls look good, but you know the old saying in wrestling, and I know the internet doesn't get this. If you're a good worker, if you're just a good worker, you're making other people look good. You're making the stars look good. And that's kind of how I would view her. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if there's nothing for her right now, I don't know. Like, I honestly, she's in that tag team with Liv Morgan. Who do they look at as the future star there?
Right. The one that's still under contract.
Correct. That's...
You know what, though? Ruby Riott, like, Impact Wrestling or AEW, that's somebody that they want to scoop up.
I would think so. I mean,
especially like AEW, because
yes,
there's no one else there that's necessarily like her, so she stands out. She has a look where she'll stand out.
Yeah, no, she has a unique look. There's nobody that looks like her. Like, I can't think of anybody. And good in the ring. You could use her to help build that division, because AEW, we talked about it all the time. They need the most help in that division. I mean, it's some of it's booking, some of it's creative, but a lot of it's talent. And I think you look for anybody that can carry a good match in that division. So I would say AEW. I would think both companies would have interest, truthfully. And I wonder, now that I think about it, because her other old partner's unsigned too, Sarah Logan. So maybe they'd reform a team somewhere.
That'd be interesting. All right, who else got canned?
So the next person on the list is Murphy, or Buddy Murphy, depending on which era of WWE you're thinking of. So he was released. He'd been with the company, I think, 7 years.
Like, now he's a talent, but I figure he's great in the ring, but he really doesn't have much charisma. Like, there's not much you can do. See, here's the thing. You have to have more than talent in wrestling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where it stops with him.
Well, I know years ago when you and I were talking about NXT when it first started getting going, and him and Wesley Blake came out of nowhere as that really good tag team. So his skills were really good in that team. And then Alexa Bliss was their manager. He stood out as the best worker of the two. And then he fit right into that 205 Live when that show was really good. They brought him up. Really, we're doing nothing with him prior to that, and he blew up on that show because he was able to get over just on his work. But again, it's kind of like Ruby Riott. After you've seen the work, what else is there? So he'll find work. He'll be able to. He pretty much.
I heard Dunkin' Donuts is hiring. No, I'm pleasant today, am I not?
I know you're just a ray of sunshine. He's a guy full
of sunshine.
He's a guy. His style's pretty physical. I mean, he's a guy I could even see working in Japan.
See, I think that would be the best fit for him, is like a New Japan.
I think
sure.
I think that would be good. And then he could work in that style, and he could reinvent himself. And if he's able to find a new character or something, then WWE or maybe another company would look at him and be like, okay, let's bring this guy in. I think, like I said, he's in the company for 7 years, and he's kind of floundering in the last year. So he needs to kind of get out there and reinvent himself. That's how I would look at it. That's the best thing any of these talents can do when they leave. Go out there and reinvent yourself, and then maybe come back or get on with another company.
Yes, sir.
The next one was surprising but not surprising. Was Lana.
Yes.
So I'm not sure how long she was with the company. Quite a long time now. the thing with Lana, I'm gonna give her props because she actually like uprooted to train in the last couple of years. She was living part time in Florida, training with Natty and TJ because she really wanted to wrestle. So she was putting the work in to be a better wrestler. Not that I don't think anybody would ever say she was like that elite level wrestler, but she was working hard at it. I think out of all the releases, she will probably do, she might do the best out of all the releases because, let's be honest, she might be probably one of the most beautiful women that's ever been in wrestling. She can model. She was in acting before she was in wrestling. She was getting third-party sponsorships before the big crackdown. I mean, if she wants to continue with wrestling, I'm sure there's a role for her.
Well, with the AEW schedule, like she could do that, join her husband at AEW, as well as do whatever other things that come up.
Would be interesting with her going to AEW. I don't know. Would you pair her with Miro right now? He's actually somewhat found his footing. I mean, she can't go.
Why wouldn't you?
I probably wouldn't disrupt what Miro's doing right now, but she can't sign anyway for a few months, so.
But that's what, like, why not? Like, put her with him.
That depends. I don't know if you could recreate that. The Russian thing. That's what was over.
Yeah, but see, you're looking at the point like AEW would actually do something that makes sense, and that's right.
Okay. Well, I don't know, man. I think out of all the talent, like I said, she's the one I would worry about the least. She's gonna do just fine. I just don't know if there's a future for her in the ring. I know she worked hard at it. She's tried really hard at it. I think they almost abandoned the storyline they had with her and Nia. And really, when you kind of break it down, when you don't have that storyline, what else are you going to do with her as a wrestler? So, she'd been with the company quite a long time. Yeah, she's good. She had a good run. Like let's be honest, it was probably time for her. The next one was maybe the most surprising for me was Aleister Black.
Yes, especially because they just re-debuted him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, because like the other names, we can say, they were kind of there but not there. He had a long layoff from TV, and then they just brought him back as, well, he called it the Dark Father character, because they were producing.
That's supposed to be like a modern day Good Father.
I don't think he was going to be doing good deeds by the looks of it. But they, they obviously spent money. They were producing those segments for him. Like, they had animation in it. I can tell from editing, even at a lower level, that the amount of time that probably took to create was time consuming and cost some money.
Yeah, they're just like me. They'll put a lot of work in and then get bored of it and move on. Kayfabe.
God. So no, they he came back like 2 weeks ago on the show and cost Biggie his match for the Intercontinental title. So it looked like they were gearing up for a feud between those two, and then they released them, which I found that interesting. You're re-debuting, you're spending money on his re-debut. He said they even had new music for him and everything. So they actually put together a new song, and then they released them. The only thing that kind of, not merely the flag, but I was listening to Post Wrestling this weekend. John Pollock said he talked to someone at WWE that said they weren't overly shocked with Aleister Black's release. So I'm not sure what that exactly means, if he'd been on the chopping block for a while. I'll say this, when they brought him up to the main roster initially, he was like on a roll. He was winning like he was undefeated for like seemingly ever. And then we talked about it before when Paul Heyman was booking Raw. He was pushing a lot of the young guys. He had him and Apollo Crews and it was Andrade and Angel Garza and all these guys. And then when
the guys that got released,
yeah, except Apollo, but they derailed him too. It was like when Bruce took over, that push stopped. So it maybe, and I could be wrong, but it may have been somebody in a position of power that didn't want to use him. That's all I could think of on that, because I can't see you re-debuting the guy and then you release him.
Yeah.
The others, all the ones we named so far, I can make a case for releasing them. This one I'm confused on. So the last one was surprise to a lot of people was Braun Strowman was released.
Now this was probably the biggest surprise of them all. Only because I feel like a lot of people saw him as top talent in the upper echelon of WWE, like in the main event scene.
Well, he's definitely featured a lot the last, I don't know how many years now. He was just in the pay-per-view main event, the last pay-per-view. And he had the feud at WrestleMania with Shane. So he was featured pretty heavily. You know, they listed a lot of these, all the releases as budget cuts. So his contract, and I had heard his downside was $1.2 million.
Wow.
So,
and you gotta ask yourself, is he worth that at this point?
Right. So is he, because that's your downside, right? So the point of the downside is that's there if you don't make more than that allotted amount. So is he selling T-shirts to eclipse that? Is he like drawing enough revenue where he's exceeding that limit? I would have a hard time believing that he's pulling in that kind of revenue. I don't know. But 1.2 million, you could probably make the argument if he was over and making like double that on revenue that you wouldn't release him because he's actually producing.
Maybe a couple years ago.
Well, so I know with him and I think Alistair, they re-signed in 2019. And do you remember WWE signing people to big contracts in 2019?
Yes.
And they did that because AEW was starting?
Yeah.
So, they did that to secure talent, lock talent in, right? Now, my guess, whether it's right or wrong, they probably don't view losing these talents to another company as detrimental. If I had to guess, because if you were really set on not losing someone to another company, I don't think you'd see them released. So Braun's been there. I think he's been there around 7 years too. So, and we talk about it all the time. You have so much of a shelf life. He got over. I remember. I'm sure you remember when he did the whole ambulance thing with Roman, where he turned the ambulance over on him.
Yes.
Like, he got over big when he did that stuff. Like, huge. At one point, he was super over. And then he got really over when he won the Money in the Bank.
Now, do you... Yeah. Well, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Do you think the reason why he never reached his full potential is because they didn't pull the trigger when they should have so many times?
I think the Money in the Bank is where they should have pulled the trigger on him. Because when he came out, he was going to cash that in during the Brock and... Was it Roman? I know it was Brock for sure, because he came out and the crowd was going ballistic. They were doing his catchphrase with him. And then he never got to cash it in. They killed him right there. There was a couple times. But his window for being... But I don't know. Maybe they felt that was just momentary. I don't know. Because I thought the strongman stuff was cool when he's flipping cars and all that. Like, I thought that was pretty cool. Like, stuff like that. But I could have... to be honest, I wasn't like, oh my god, I have to watch this Braun Strowman match. So, and which is fine. You don't need to be a great in-ring worker, but I don't know. To me, he was a guy with size that could move some, but I don't know. He had those brief moments where he was really over, and then nothing. So you could say it's the company not pulling the trigger, but I don't think he had the tools to keep himself over either. Because you got to remember, he got over. Like I said, he got over flipping ambulances. So those are like parlor tricks. You can only do that so much. What else do you do after that?
But see, I think I kind of disagree a little bit with that because I feel like he got over when he was squashing people on Raw before that.
Oh, and yeah.
Like maybe that's the stuff that put him in the main event picture, but I feel like he was over before that and he had lots of momentum.
Well, I can see that with squash matches, but how many talents got over squash matches and stayed over after they didn't do the squash matches anymore? Like, only one I can think of, and that was Goldberg. Because
but that's what I mean.
Ryback was the same way.
But okay, whoa, you're going on here. Let's stop at Goldberg because you said he was the exception.
Yes.
What did they do with Goldberg after he was done squashing people? Or it was actually while he was squashing people.
I don't think they stopped squashing people.
But what did they do?
He was the champion.
They put the belt on him. They put the U.S. title on him. And then they put the world title on him.
Yep.
Right? So they didn't go to pull the trigger and then didn't do that. You know, they didn't stop. They went all in with him. I feel like WWE didn't do that with Braun. I feel like a lot of times where he should have maybe went over, won the title, or not, or even just like been featured more. You know, I feel like they didn't pull the in my mind, he should have been squashing people, and then he should have gotten a main event with Brock Lesnar and squashed him, and that would have made him. But no, they had him do all this other things.
He did have that match with Brock, but
it didn't go.
It didn't go that way.
No, and a lot of people think he should have won that match.
Well, that whole year was the one year they had Brock wrestle like everybody. And you could make that same case for Samoa Joe when he wrestled Brock. There's a lot of people.
I don't think Samoa Joe was that over as Braun was, though.
He was over. I don't know if Braun was that over at that time when he wrestled Brock either. But he was far more over then than he is now. So I don't know. You're right. There's missed opportunities with Braun, but I don't know. I don't know if he would have been able to sustain it either. Because to me, when I listen to him talk, I don't find him that intriguing, to be honest with you. I think he's a strong man. I think that's kind of the shtick he needs to stick with. I don't know. I don't know. I think that they.
Do you know?
Do I know? I know he's released.
There you go.
I didn't see the mega superstar with Braun, but at the same time, those couple instances we listed, I mean, who knows after that? I have a feeling he would have faltered after that anyway. But the question is with Braun, like, what is he gonna do now?
Okay, well, it's not what he's going to do with us. With us, it's where would you put him? If you could put him in any promotion, where would you put him? Where does he end up?
I don't know. I don't even see a fit for him, to be honest with you, like the way he works and stuff. So I'm not. I mean, maybe like an Impact, because I mean you could flesh him out a little bit there. I don't see him in AEW, to be honest with you.
No.
I mean, could he go to Japan, be like an attraction there? Because they don't have monsters there.
You know what's funny? What does this tell you about professional wrestling? That a big man does not fit in anywhere.
It's crazy.
To think that like years ago.
Oh, maybe. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Wonder if NWA would take a shot at him.
See, I think maybe that would be his best bet, right?
because shorter matches. There's nobody his size there, and they are a company that, for the most part, likes size. They like big talents, and if he was just working like a few minutes in the ring and killing guys, that would probably work. And he's probably, and it's not like he's gonna have. He might get some hostility with the crowd, but you know what? That's a crowd you want hostility with. That crowd makes that show.
All right.
But yeah, you're right. It's a weird state in wrestling when it used to be land of the giants. WWE. Japan. Andre went to Japan and was like the biggest thing ever there because he's just massive. But now it's smaller guys, work rate, and a lot of companies. I don't see Braun going to Ring of Honor, so it'll be interesting. He had a statement like a year ago saying he would never work for anybody other than Vince. So I will have to see if that stands true.
All right. So, do you have any other news for us this week?
Just based on that, we were going to talk about it. There's a lot of rumors on the WWE based on all their releases. There are people online that believe that the company is ready to sell. So I wanted to have that discussion. And
yes.
Pick your brain on that, and I have a theory on it. So let's get into that.
All right. So the rumor is that WWE is looking to sell because they're unleashing all this talent, as well as last year, Triple H and Stephanie have, like, over the last couple of years, they've been selling a lot of their WWE stock. So, Matt, are they selling?
Well, I was going to get your opinion on it first. But.
I think they are. The rumor is, I saw that the potential buyer could be NBC.
Well, there's some talk that because NBC's building a new theme parks, and that WWE could be like its own theme park essentially, and that because NBC owns these theme parks, they could be buying that as an intellectual property to use for it. So I know that's been out there. I personally, I don't think they're selling, at least not right now. I think if I had to guess, because one thing this is what I think they're doing, at least in the short term. What's something we talked about with WWE a lot that they're looking to do? They were looking to do more shows. And one of the things they were looking to do was expand into India. So they were going to develop that NXT India. They were actually going to build a performance center there. And then, we've heard things like they're trying to do partnerships with MLW, one with New Japan. If I had to guess, that's where a lot of the resources are going to go in the near future. It seems to me that they're still building towards expansion. And what's the best way to free capital up to do that? Release high-end contracts. The other thing is, because last few months, when Punga's been on the show, he's announced every signing they've had. They've been in heavy hiring mode all year. It's not like they just put out like a hiring freeze and then started letting people go.
I missed that. What was that? What did you say about Punga?
Well, Punga would always, on some of our news stories, he would announce like the new signees for the WWE.
Okay. And
for I swear for a month straight.
I'm sorry, I thought you said that they signed Punga. I was like, that explains why he's not here.
NXT Punga, yes. No, but we kept reading the news, and it was like for a month straight, it was new signees. It was like Indie Town, they signed a lot of people earlier this year. So they're still putting people under contract. They just put out a release the other day on what they're looking for in new signees. So it's not like they have like a freeze on signing people. To me, it sounds like they were clearing bad contracts off the books. And that's probably, who knows if there's inner office issues with the talents they released either, but that's what it seems like to me. Now the office people, they basically merged two departments into one. It was like there was two different digital departments. So they released some people in one of their digital departments and then kind of merged the two. Again, if they're expanding into a place like India, I imagine they're going to be hiring people that know that market and can develop digital content specifically for that area. Same with if they're doing anything in Japan. That's how I view it. If they were going to sell, my guess is it's not going to be probably till the Peacock deal's done, because you probably want all your licensing deals up before you sell, is just my guess. And I know NBC's got the licensing deal, but that puts them in a higher market to leverage at that point. But that's just how I view it. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but to me, like, we keep talking about them expanding, and that's what I think's going to happen here.
Now, do you think that Triple H and Stephanie could be selling the stock to get more revenue in order to buy the company out from Vince McMahon? Would that be a possibility?
Well, see, how I understand it with corporations, the stocks they're selling they were like Class C stocks. There's no real power in those stocks. That's just like a cash dump. So, like, big corporations buy and sell those all the time. So they didn't sell any of the ones that really dropped their power, so to speak. But I've said it all along, when Vince is done with the company, whenever that is, I definitely see Stephanie being the principal shareholder in the company. So how that works, I have no idea. I don't even know what that would cost. Vince has like 50% of the company, or 51. He's majority shareholder in the company. And maybe they took that money out and invested it to do that. It's possible. I don't know the legalities with all that. I was reading something with publicly traded companies, because I'm not that well versed in that field to really know how this works, but apparently if you're going to sell a publicly shared company, you have to take all the public stocks back to do it. So I don't know how that really works. Now, I'm sure there's ways around that. I don't know. I know, like, one of the theories out there was Vince, like, they would sell, but they would stay on as employees or something like that, which would be odd, seeing Vince as an employee. I'd have a hard time believing that.
Well, I would imagine he would probably retire.
I'd have a hard time thinking he'd ever retire. Like, there's nothing else that he does other than WWE and working out. That's like all he does. I'm not saying at this stage in his life, he's not where he was years ago, but I don't know. That's one of those things where you almost think that he's going to hold on as long as he can. I mean, everyone always talks about what's going to happen if Vince passes away. His mother just turned 100 years old. I'm not sure he's going to. So, I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's rumor, right? So, but it's more speculative, because other than releases, what other indicators would be that they're selling? You know, like, I look at the release list this year, it's not as many as last year, but I don't know if you know what I mean? And last year was the pandemic, and they're still probably feeling that this year. So, I mean, feeling it in one sense. I know that they had record profits, but I think they know when they go back out on the road, the profit margin's not going to be as high, because your production level goes up when you're going town to town. And are they going to go back to the house show tour? Like that's all budgeted stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. And I was one thing I was reading that do you know who Brandon Thurston is?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
So he runs like WrestleNomics. So he does like a website based on like economics on wrestling. And he put out a statement that says, foreboding that WWE is preparing to sell is the stuff of cynical wrestling fan fatalism. New leadership came in August and is still in year one. I'd be shocked if WWE sells in Vince's lifetime. Nick Khan indicated to Cowherd that Vince has no intention to sell. I cannot imagine Vince doing anything else. Layoffs, releases, and restructuring probably has more to do with Nick Khan and Christina Salen critiquing and reshaping what George Barrios and Michelle Wilson left behind. Every few years, WWE has cut employee and talent headcounts. So basically what he's saying, it's not uncommon for new executives to come in and reshape the company. And he says WWE had over 300 wrestlers under contract in 2020, way more than they need, for basically no reason other than to hoard them from the competition. Doing so probably contributed to talent leverage and pay negotiations. New leadership might not see this approach as cost effective. If you followed Vince's career, he's a control freak through and through. That tendency increased with time. I tend to believe control is priceless to him. When he's gone, sure, WWE might sell an NBC Universal is the most obvious suitor and really the only one that makes sense. Understandably, wrestlers too may be looking for a grand reason why they or their friends were cut. He continued, 78 out of 300 of them wrestled on all TV WWE Network shows in the last full year, including those who were just at ringside. Granted, more appeared in non-wrestling roles. Even allowing for that and substantial number off-screen in development or out with injuries, the ratio doesn't make sense. The defense built to guard against AEW putting NXT head-to-head on cable and warehousing talent is costly, ineffective, and is being somewhat undone. So that was his take on that. So basically what he's saying is, if you have 300 people under contract and they're just sitting there, it's not cost effective. In the company's restructuring. That's how he viewed it. I still think they're expanding, but there's probably several reasons we have no idea about.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. But it's obviously it's all a wait and see.
Well, I mean, really. They're going to do it or they're not going to do it. I'd be curious if they did sell what the company's going to look like.
Yeah.
Like, is it better? Is it worse?
I mean, it's hard to say, right?
NBC Universal would own it. Does that not remind you of WCW?
I get how so? Because Turner?
Yeah, they were owned by a television network.
I guess so, but I mean, I don't know. Like I said, it's hard to see, right?
Yeah. The big problem with WCW, they went through a string of people in charge. They were bringing in TV execs. They were getting rid of wrestling people, and then you've seen the company dip, right? So that's kind of what I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not saying it's even going to be sold, but that's the first thing that comes to mind if you were going to sell to a television network. But obviously, we'll be following this because it's dominating news right now. Probably people will forget about it in a couple weeks, but. We'll see. It's an interesting times in the wrestling business.
Indeed. Do you have any other news for us this week?
Quickly, I just want to say I didn't get to watch it today, but the NWA had a pay-per-view.
Oh.
And bringing this up, there's a couple reasons I'm bringing this up. So they did have a return on this pay-per-view. They had announced it prior, but Kylie Ray is in the NWA now. And as we know, she was with Impact Wrestling, was it last year?
Yeah.
And went on a hiatus and basically retired from wrestling. So she was announced for this pay-per-view. She was in a tag team match, and then they announced that NWA worked it out with Impact, and now Kylie Ray is under contract to the NWA. So I just wanted to mention that because obviously that was a big news story when she left wrestling. She has some personal issues that prevented her from working. She's left a couple companies now. So I just wanted to bring that up. I'm hoping that this is kind of the like a good fit for her, and it might be because of their taping schedule, because she is really talented, and I hope that it works out for her. But I just want to bring it up because there's a lot of stuff out there with mental health, and I hope that this is the turning point for her.
Yeah.
And also of note on that pay-per-view, there is a new NWA Women's Champion.
Oh, really? So Serena Deep's no longer the NWA Women's Champion?
That is correct.
So who is? The million-dollar question.
The new Women's Champion is Camille.
Oh, good. Good for her.
Talk about somebody that has star written all over her. Camille's going to be a big deal in pro wrestling within the next year or two, I would imagine. But I think Serena Deeb, for somebody that really wasn't working for the last several years, she's emerged as one of the best women's wrestlers in the entire business. And that run with the NWA title, even on AEW, the way she was able to carry that was tremendous. So my hope is that she gets a run at the AEW Women's Championship now, because she's really talented, and I think that she's proved that in the wrestling world from coming out of nowhere, from several years of obscurity. But yeah, those two things that I had read on the pay-per-view. I didn't get a chance to watch it. There was another return, and I wanted to bring this up to you. JTG was on the pay-per-view.
JTG?
Yeah. That's what I like about NWA. They
have WWE's 2005 undercard?
No, they like taking talent that you might have forgotten about and see if they could get anything out of them. I like that. I'm not saying JTG is going to be the world champion or anything like that, but I just read the name. I wasn't expecting it at all. And NWA does that quite a bit. So anyway, that was kind of the notes on that. Really wasn't anything else from that show, but I just wanted to throw those 2 points in there.
Perfect. Is there any other news this week? Because other than the releases, I don't recall seeing anything else.
The only news, WWE announced SummerSlam.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So they're going to be in Vegas and Allegiant Stadium, so it's outdoor stadium. Interesting spot because Vegas doesn't draw very good, like in any company. So, and then it's an outdoor stadium.
So are they actually having it in the stadium, or is it going to be in the parking lot of the stadium?
Oh, they just said Allegiant Stadium, so I don't know what that exactly means. I don't think it'd be the parking lot there, but
I mean, they said they were going to have WrestleMania at Caesar's Palace, but we all know it was in the parking lot.
Wow, you're going back. Yeah, so outdoor stadium, SummerSlam. There's a lot of rumors they're bringing in big names for this. I have a feeling since it's in an outdoor stadium, they're gonna go all out for this show. So it's in August, so they got a couple months to build to it. I kind of miss SummerSlam being that huge summer show. So I hope it is big this year. SummerSlam was always, I loved it as a kid because it was that one big show before I had to go back to school. So
I always thought that SummerSlam should be an outdoor show as opposed to WrestleMania.
It's in the summer.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because there's only been one SummerSlam event that was outdoors.
Was that in England?
Yes, it was. SummerSlam 1992 at Wembley Stadium. So, but yeah, it's funny because it's summer, right? So you would think that it would be like kind of outside and have that whole vibe.
Yeah, maybe they can make some old vignettes again where they had like Batista playing volleyball or something. Just get that summer vibe.
Why would they have Batista? He's retired.
They had that video one year.
Okay.
But yeah, so
now I'll tell you this. I heard some of the rumored matches.
Yeah, I did too, which I usually don't check that, but I couldn't avoid it on social media.
And I'll tell you, if they have these matches, I will start watching WWE again. So I'm just going to tell you, like, the main event that's rumored, all rumored and innuendo, is Brock Lesnar versus John Cena. That is wrong.
That's wrong. That's wrong. Because I was going to say, you have it backwards.
I have it backwards. I am wrong. It's...
Although that would be a big match, but still.
But we've seen it before. So it would be... Let me try this again. John Cena versus Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
And Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley.
Oh, man.
So I would definitely see, like...
Yeah.
Start watching, like, if...
That'd be awesome.
Like, yeah. Because now I could care less.
That Lashley-Lesnar match has been... People wanted that for a long time. Long time.
I mean, it would make sense, right?
You could build that. You could build that heavy, too, because Lashley's had a really good run. And, Lesnar's Lesnar. They're both MMA guys. Winning records in MMA. Both amateur wrestlers. Both are, unbelievably, muscular. It would be, larger than life. It'd be great. It'd be great. And as far as Cena and Reigns goes, I know that match has happened before, but Reigns needs opponents, and big opponents. And SummerSlam's a big event, so that would work there too. And the promos would be leading to that would be great.
Yep, indeed. Do you have anything else you would like to add this week before we take the show to a close?
Darkside of the Ring.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, okay, yeah. I almost forgot all about that. So we did watch Darkside of the Ring this past week. It was on Grizzly Smith and the Smith family, kind of. I'm going to be honest. There's not much. This was heavy.
Yeah, very.
This was very, very heavy. And I'm usually one that, whatever. I don't know. I had a hard time with this. I remember, I think I turned to my wife. She was kind of sitting beside me, and I'm like, "Jeez, it's no wonder Jake had the life that he had." I'm not saying this was okay for it, but no wonder why he wanted to escape. I feel so sorry. I don't know. The worst part was when Grizzly Smith, well, I don't know if it was a worst part, but one part that it just made me sick. He showed up to Rockin' Robin's house.
Yes.
A 9-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. This, you know what? I thought it great show. Like the guys, again, hit it out of the ballpark. They did a great job and all that. It's just this was just so hard because, how did the boys not know this? And why I kind of know, but why did they not kick his ass? Why did they not beat his ass for this?
Because, my guess.
Because he was respected in wrestling, right?
But my guess is they didn't actually see him do anything with these girls.
Mm.
And hindsight.
It's something new, though.
It's easy in hindsight.
They alluded to it.
They were cracking jokes about him hanging out with girls and kids and stuff. But you could say that about anybody walking a kid down the street. That's what I kind of gathered with that, because it's wrestling. And they will knock anybody. But my guess is because they didn't see any. Truthfully, I would bet if somebody found out about that, something would have happened. Is my guess, because I can't see. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, do you think Bill Watts would have been like, okay, I can have a child molester as my agent?
I don't know.
You know what I mean? Because I don't think he took crap from anybody. So I would be, but I don't know that. I don't know. I mean, nobody really knows, but.
What were your thoughts on this episode? Because I have a hard time with this. Like other people have asked me if I watched, and I honestly didn't have much to say.
It was disturbing, and I knew it was going to be before it started. And when I seen they had the disclaimer before the show started, which I hadn't seen on Darkside before, I knew it was going to get into some pretty heavy subject matter. You know, I found it is weird, like how manipulative Grizzly was. Like he's working his kids, like as a wrestler, like right from the time they're young, like talking about wrestlers coming to the territory gonna beat him up, and he's telling them all this stuff, like, and getting them all paranoid. Like he was working his family, and he's working them against each other, which is sick and manipulative.
Very sick.
Right? And then, you know, the whole thing with Jake's mother and all that is disturbing. The whole thing with his stepmother, Jake's stepmother, is disgusting. And that sounded like that was some manipulation between the parents. You know, I don't know if they didn't explain a lot of Grizzly's career, but I don't know if you want all the focus on that either. But
yeah, you don't want to sensationalize any of this.
No, but I think getting into his career might have talked about how he had so much influence, because it seems like he knew everybody, the police, the court system, which the way it came across, he was like almost invincible in the areas he was in, and that's the disturbing part. One of the disturbing parts. You know, the part where his other daughter got kidnapped is a weird story. That her husband's ex-wife kidnapped her, and they couldn't find the body, and that's still, I think that's still an open case.
Yeah, it's not solved, and they think that she got incinerated.
It's very odd. Very odd. You know what? Part with Baby Doll talking about how everyone wanted to do road trips with Grizzly, and then she's in the car, and then he stops and picks up a 13-year-old girl, and the parents are waving, saying "Have a good time." And I mean, that's weird. I mean, I know it's like whatever year this was, so you know, it's hard to using hindsight's not always a good thing, because you know that it's a different world too, but it doesn't make it any less disturbing. You know, that you just wonder how many lives like he damaged. You see his kids alone. Like Sam Houston, they said, the Cornet said he had the most DUIs in the state of Texas. Like that's, and he kept getting out of jail because of Grizzly. Like it's just like weird. Like the cycle is weird with him and his kids.
Right. Well, if he can manipulate his kids and other people, you know, who knows how many people he's manipulated. Like you said, he left like a trail behind him.
Yeah. Like it's very, very strange. It's a very strange case. I mean, you know, he had, 4 kids. The one son was adopted out of the family. But it seems like the two that were most adversely affected were Jake and Robin. But Sam had other issues. But he was still like idolizing Grizzly. So it's still the manipulation's still there today. It's so odd. It was a disturbing episode. It is shying away from wrestling to a degree. You know, a lot can be said about Jake, and some of it rightfully so. But you could tell how damaged he was from an early age. You know, I don't necessarily believe that that's why he was doing drugs and stuff, but that's probably why he couldn't stop. Yeah. I don't know. I felt very. It's hard to watch that.
Yeah.
I don't think I could watch that episode again because it was just very, very. It's gross. Just gross. And you know, that's one story, and there's probably millions of stories similar to that's happened.
Yeah.
You get people in high-profile positions that take advantage of kids and stuff. It's like what's the case recently? Was it Epstein?
Yeah.
I mean, he's got all that power and all that wealth, and he's manipulating people. It's something similar, but anyway, the whole thing was they all agreed to do that show because they wanted to help people that have been through similar situations. So if that opens up eyes and helps people get help and get out of bad situations, then I think that story was worth telling. But it was very, very disturbing.
Yeah. Well, next week we have Dynamite Kid, so that's going to be a good one to talk about.
Well, that one will have dark moments as well.
Oh yeah, I've read his book. Have you read his book?
Yeah, that was.
All right, so we know what we're getting into.
His book, that's one of the best wrestling books.
Yes, I agree.
But he had quite the life and quite the trials and tribulations, and yeah, I mean in all honesty, his career wasn't even that long.
No.
So, but there'll be a lot to cover in that one. One more thing that I'm going to watch for next week is A&E documentary this week is on Bret Hart.
Yes. Yeah, I'll watch that for next week too. As long as we don't have to talk WWE.
We'll talk if there's something good, but we don't have to go in depth.
Sounds good.
But that'll be good. I'll be curious to see how open Bret is on the documentary. I'm sure he will have a lot of quotable stuff. So,
I've seen commercials for it. It looked really cool. The commercials?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were really good. So it looks very enticing.
Well, yeah.
And then eventually, once the Dark Side of the Ring simmers down, and we have that break, I'd like to go back and watch some of these biographies.
Well, after the Dynamite one, there's a season break.
There we go. So that's when we can hit some of those out of the ballpark.
I don't know how long they're off for, but I think there's another 6 episodes.
There we go.
Darkside. So yeah, we can finish. We can go through the A&E ones, even ones I don't care about. I'll watch them.
All right. Anything else you like to add?
I don't think so. The Watch for Punga is still on, but I think he'll be back next week.
We'll have a Dark Side of the Ring on Michael Punga. And then after the 1 week, he was gone.
We could actually make a podcast series on Mike Punga.
Oh boy. Yeah.
50 Shades of Punga.
And that's when you know to bring the show to a close. That's all for this week, ladies and gentlemen. And be sure to follow us on every single platform, including Twitter, where Matt tweets his hate of AEW.
No, he doesn't.
You can also be sure to subscribe and leave a review. You know, we don't really ask for that much often, but we would like to see some reviews out there. That would be appreciative. If you have anything you'd like to us talk about, or any mail or whatever, please write to us, care of Matt Pepper at, what's our email address, Matt?
3fallspodcast@gmail.com.
There you go. Perfect. 3fallspodcast@gmail. And is that a number 3 or 3 spelled out?
It's a number 3.
Number 3fallspodcast@gmail.com. I'm Derek. And I will talk to you next week. Matt is blowing his cue. See you next week.
See ya.
Goodbye.